this is Michael Johnson. Welcome to Crash Course Zoology. Today, we're going to be talking about the wonderful world of Porifera. We're accompanied by our beautiful friend, SpongeBob SquarePants. So Porifera, it's important to note that they're pretty much asymmetrical in the way that they form. So SpongeBob, not a good representation, he's a square. We're talking asymmetry here, people. Sometimes they appear superficially radial. As we can see, sometimes they look like a tube, kind of like SpongeBob's socks. They're consisted of 3 types of cells, but these cells don't band together in tissues. They just kind of act independently of each other, and they have different functions. So you have pinocytes, which are contractile cells that facilitate water movement. That's your outer layer, your sponge. Then you have mesenchyme cells, which are used for reproduction and some of your skeletal structure, as well as food transport and storage. Choanocytes are your last type of cell. Those are flagellated cells in the collar that facilitate water movement. Go swoosh, 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 swoosh. And they filter food, which is pretty cool. Can't live without those choanocytes. You know, kind of like women. Can't live without them. Or with them. But anyway, you know, then you have your skeleton of a sponge, which you don't really think of a sponge with a skeleton, but it's kind of a skeleton-like structure. It's made of spongin and spicules, which are 2 different little thingamabobs that are made of calcium carbonate or silica and give the sponge its stuff. It's cool. The next thing we're going to remember is just fine dining and breathing, because that's all we need to remember. Nothing about a name, of course. But so, when fine dining is a sponge, you make sure that you look for bacteria, microscopic algae, protists, and other microscopic matter. And you filter feed. That's really cool. They filter feed. Good time. And then, sponges, they gotta have a good time. You know, they gotta reproduce. Obviously, SpongeBob and Sandy aren't reproducing because that's square peg, round hole theory. Not gonna work very well. So, but reproduction, they're monoecious, so they have both sexes occur in each sponge, but they don't, like, reproduce as a sponge, like, just together. You know? They release eggs and sperm at a different time, so the eggs get released, and then like a couple months later the sperm get released, and then they meet somewhere in the great unknown, and a new sponge is formed. And there's Mr. Salmons. We've had a Mr. Salmons. We're doing a crash course in zoology.
So you crash course on video?
Yeah.
Online?
Not like we're making our crash course. Yeah. I'm sure that was all recorded. That was good. You know, if evolution is true, then SpongeBob happened by chance. But continuing, you know, some sponges reproduce asexually upon death. They have these little packets of gemmules that release later on, and they go poof, and become a sponge after they die, which is cool. It's a cool thing, isn't it, Kenzie? That's right. Okay. They're super ecologically important because why wouldn't you be able to survive with that sponge, right? I mean, you need a sponge. So one sponge can filter up to 20 liters of water each day. And so what it does is it reduces the turbidity of water, like how choppy it is, so you can go surfboarding with your friends. Thanks, sponges. Also, if there's many sponges in an area, it shows that the ocean water is not toxic, because if there's toxic water or matter around, it clogs the sponge's pores, and it makes it hard for the sponges to live, and they'll die. So no sponges in an area is why Alyssa should stop talking, but it's okay. But no sponges in an area represents, you know, poor ecological habitat. Sponges also release chemicals to help break up old shells, which is good. Good things. And then we have different classes.
Hey guys, welcome back to Crash Course, and this is a little bit of a disclaimer. Tori is concussed, so her part of this presentation might be a little rough. That's not Tori, she's not dead, just concussed. But we'll get back to the video.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Crash Course Zoology. I'm here with some examples of poriferas. I'm also concussed. Okay, so the first example is Calcarea, and this is a needle-shaped spicules composed of calcium carbonate. Spicules can also have 3 or 4 rays, ascon, leucon, or syncon body forms. All are marine. An example of that will be Goncha lacosa, also known as the Goncha sponge. Somewhat flattened spherical structure of off-white tubes. The diameter is less than 3 centimeters. Syncon quadrangulatum. Sound right? Thanks. Or also known as the calcareous sponge, is a cylinder-shaped sponge with a single opening, known as the ocule, and at the end. Color is gray, white, or light brown, and it can reach lengths of 9 centimeters. The lifespan is about 1 year. Oh, wow. Okay, another example of this is the Hexactinellida. And these spicules are composed of silica, usually 6th grade. Spicules are often fused into an intricate lattice, cup or vase-shaped. Syncon or leucon body forms, found 450 to 900 millimeters deep in tropical West Indies and eastern Pacific. An example of this is the glass sponge, also known as the Eupicolicta, the Venus flower basket. It looks really pretty. Thin-walled and cylindrical shaped, body is composed of silica in the form of 6-pointed silicous spicules. An example of this is the glass rope sponge. These organisms have no organ system or tissues. Outer skeleton is completely made up of silica. These are usually found in deeper waters. Oh my god, there's so many. Okay, and then another example. Is the Demospongi. This is a brilliantly colored sponge with needle-shaped or four-rayed silicous spicules or spongin, or both. Leucon body form, up to 1 meter in height and diameter. This usually includes one family of freshwater sponges, the Spongilidae, and bath sponges. An example of this is Ciliona. It's a red boring sponge, not exciting sponge. These are found worldwide. They create round holes in limestones or the shells of mollusks, especially oysters. It is often visible as a rather featureless yellow or orange lump at the bottom of the hole. Another example is Spongia, freshwater sponges that attach themselves to logs and rocks and filter the water for various small aquatic organisms. These are exposed to far more adverse conditions, so they have developed gemmules as a means of dormancy. When exposed to cold or excessively harsh conditions, the sponges form these, which can remain dormant even if the mother sponge dies. Alright, and then another example is Homoscleroforma, flat with protruding spicules that are specialized for attachment. Top surface consists of densely folded pinoectoderm, which supports the flagellid pictocytes. And plankton is a spiculate, and it's still being taxonomically classified. And then cordyceum contains 2 steroidalkaloids. And that is it. Thank you.
Welcome back to Crash Course Zoology. Talking about cnidarians, most cnidarians possess 2 body forms in their life history. Either the polyp, which is usually asexual and sessile. It attaches to a substrate at the aboreal end and has a cylindrical body called the column and a mouth surrounded by food-gathering tentacles. It also has the medusa, but not snakes coming out of its head. The medusa is dioestrous and free-swimming. It is shaped like an inverted bowl, and tentacles dangle from its margins. The mouth opening is centrally located, facing downward, and the medusa swims by gentle pulsations of the body. Cnidarians derive most of their support from the buoyancy of the water around them. A hydrostatic skeleton aids in the support and movement. Now I know what you're wondering. What the heck is a hydrostatic skeleton? This is when water or body fluids confined in the cavity of the body and against which contractile elements of the body wall act. Now, cnidarians have to reproduce as it's a part of life. Most cnidarians are dioestrous, which means they're separate male and female reproductive systems. They're not hermaphrodites. Sperm and eggs may be released into the gastrovascular cavity or to the outside of the body. In some instances, eggs are retained in the parent after fertilization. However, medusa nearly always form by budding from the body wall of a polyp, and polyps form other polyps by budding, which is a form of asexual reproduction. Now we're to cnidarians dining, which is the most important aspect of my life and probably cnidarians. The food of most cnidarians lines a blind-ending gastrovascular cavity. This cavity functions in digestion, the exchange of respiratory gases, and metabolic waste, and the discharge of gases. What do these cnidarians eat? Well, hopefully you're not a small crustacean or small fish, because cnidarians feed on both. As food enters the gastrovascular cavity, gastrodermal glands secrete lubricating mucus and enzymes, which reduce food to a soupy broth. And I hope that you already ate lunch. Now, the most disgusting things about these cnidarians is that the same hole that the food goes into is where the food comes out. They poop out their mouth. Now, there's some different classes of cnidarians, and the first that we'll talk about is hydrozoa. These are small, relatively calm cnidarians. Common cnidarians. They're not calm. They're common. The vast majority of these are marine, but there is one cnidarian class with freshwater representatives. Most have life cycles that display alternation of generations, and 3 features distinguish hydrozoans from other cnidarians. Nematocysts are only in the epidermis, gametes are epidermal, and the mesoglia never contains amoeboid mesenchyme cells. There's some different examples of these hydrozoa. One is the Gonomenis vertens, or the clinging jellyfish, also called the orange striped jellyfish. And these live in shallow marine waters, where it often clings to seaweed by adhesive pads on its tentacles. The margin of the medusa projects inward to form a shelf-like lip called the velum, which concentrates waters expelled from beneath the medusa to a smaller outlet, creating a jet propulsion system. They have a nerve ring, which coordinates swimming movements. Our next example is a Philosalia phylsalis, which is also known as the Portuguese man-o-war. And you don't want to run into one of these on the beach, because these are large colonial siphonophores. And you still don't know what that is, but neither do I. What it means is that its colonies are associations of numerous polypoid and medusoid individuals. Some possess a single long tentacle armed with cnidocytes for capturing prey. But sometimes they use these against humans, and they really just sting. The Portuguese man-o-war lacks swimming capabilities and moves at the mercy of the wind and waves. So if they get blown onto a beach, they automatically die because they can't do anything. But they can extremely harm you.
Sounds like Congress.
Sounds like Congress. Our next class is the Scyphozoa. Members of this class are all marine and true jellyfish. Apparently we all have an image of what a jellyfish looks like in our mind. But they are called this because of the dominant stage in their life history in the medusa. Unlike hydrozoa and medusae, Scyphozoa and medusae lack a velum, and the mesoglia contains amoeboid mesenchyme cells. Many scyphozoans are harmless to humans, but others can deliver unpleasant and even dangerous stings. And we have to put in a disclaimer, according to everyone that watches and is smart, you cannot pee on jellyfish stings. That's not true. Someone wanted you to look stupid. There's 2 examples of scyphozoas that we're going to talk about today. And one of them is the Mesogeus kincaidea, or the stinging nettle. This is a common Atlantic scyphozoan whose populations increase in late summer and become hazardous to swimmers. They can deliver painful and even dangerous stings to humans. A rule of thumb for all of us is to avoid helmet-shaped jellyfish with long tentacles and fleshy lobes hanging from the oral surface, but my advice to all of you is to stay away from anything that even closely resembles a marine animal in the ocean. Our next example is the Aurelia, also called the moon jellyfish, which is commonly found in both Pacific and Atlantic coastal waters of North America. The margin of medusa has a fringe of short tentacles and is divided by notches. The mouth leads to the stomach with 4 gastric pouches. The cells possess cilia to circulate seawater and partially digested food. It is a plankton feeder, but again, it'll try and eat you by stinging you, even though it can't eat you. Our last class of hydrozoans is the Cubozoa. These are formally classified as the order in the Scyphozoa, but the medusa is cuboidal and tentacles hang from each of its corners. Polyps are very small and in some species are unknown. Cubozoans are active swimmers and feeders in warm tropical waters, and some possess dangerous nematocysts, which we already know are tentacles that sting prey and humans. Some examples of these cubozoans are the Chironox flexori, which is a sea wasp. This is a species of highly venomous box jellyfish. It has been described as the most lethal jellyfish in the world. The medusa is cuboidal and tentacles hang from corners of the bell. The tentacles can reach up to 10 meters long. The sea wasp has caused more human suffering and death off Australian coast than the Portuguese man-o-war has in any of its home waters. Death from heart failure and shock is not likely unless the victim is stung repeatedly, and if someone put this in my presentation, it means that these things are known to sting repeatedly. Stay out of the Australian waters. And our last example is the Malo kingi, also known as the common kingslayer, and you know something with this type of name can't be safe. This jellyfish has some of the world's most potent venom, even though it's no bigger than my thumbnail. They are able to fire their stingers into their victims. Not only do these things sting you and run off, they'll leave you with their stingers, which still causes questions in the science community. They have halo-like rings around their tentacles, and their transparent bodies and size make them difficult to see in the water. You can run into one of these things and not even know it.
Another multicellular organism that lives in the ocean is the ctenophora. So ctenophores have diploblastic tissue organization. That means that their tissues contain an ectoderm, an endoderm, and an exoderm, not an ectoderm, but no mesoderm. They have biradial symmetry, and their bodies contain a central axis to which the body can be divided. Gelatinous mesoglia between the epidermal and gastrodermal tissue layers. Simply put, a jelly-like substance lies between its endoderm and its ectoderm. Ctenophores have a gastrovascular cavity that is responsible for digestion and circulation. The nervous systems are in forms of nerve sets. So instead of large, distinct organs that serve as the central nervous system, thin networks of neurons conduct impulses from the point of the stimulus. So their skeleton. Ctenophores are generally transparent, jelly-like marine organisms. Due to this transparency, ctenophores often appear to be different colors as their many cilia reflect light. That's a ctenophora, but we don't know what it is. Kind of. Consists of approximately 90 species, all of which are marine. So most possess a spherical form, however, several pieces are flattened. So ctenophores, like many other creatures, have symmetry. Organisms in this phylum possess adhesive structures called colloblasts. They're essentially a type of cell that are similar to the venomous cynocyte cells because they are both used to capture prey, but colloblasts are not venomous, just extremely sticky. Ctenophores have 8 rows of ciliary bands called comb rows for locomotion. Locomotion, like moving. So, how they feed. Ingestion occurs when prey is wiped across the mouth with the tentacles. The mouth is a direct pathway to the gastrovascular canal system. I would not like to be eaten like that. After feeding has occurred, some undigested waste leaves through the canals. However, some of this waste may be eliminated through its mouth.
If this guy over here was a sponge, his leg would grow back.
But he's not, so rest in peace.
His leg's over here.
What? Oh no. Who did this to him?
Oh wait, that's an arm.
Oh.